let's go ahead and get started.
Right.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for our webinar, NRCS Programs and Funding Opportunities for Farmers and Ranchers. My name is Annie Nichols, and I'm the Farm and Ranch Support Manager at the High Desert Food and Farm Alliance. We are a nonprofit located in Bend, Oregon, working with farmers, ranchers, and community members throughout Crook, Deschutes, and Jefferson County. Our mission is to build a healthy and thriving food network through education, collaboration, and inclusivity. We offer many different agricultural support programs, and I'd be happy to discuss more about these with anyone interested. I will add my email in the chat in case you'd like to contact me. Today, we will be learning about Natural Resource Conservation Service programs from Stephanie Payne, who is the Small Farms and Organic Specialist located in Redmond, Oregon. She will present on NRCS programs for 30 minutes, and then we will have 15 minutes for questions and answers. If you have any questions, please add them to the chat, and we will make sure to answer them afterwards. All right, on to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Annie. Appreciate you and HDFFA hosting this evening. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to share with everyone about NRCS programs and what's available out there right now. So as Annie said, my name is Stephanie Payne, and I'm the Small Farms and Organic Specialist for the NRCS based out of Redmond, Oregon. Tonight, I am going to be looking all over the place because I have notes and I am not used to Zoom meetings, so they're all they're all over the place. I just want to make sure I get all the information to you and I don't forget everything. So small farms and organic specialists, what does that really mean? It means that I do a lot of the conservation planning and contracting work for NRCS, working with specifically small farmers and ranchers and organic producers or transitioning organic producers. And I'll get into more of what NRCS conservation planning means a little later on in the presentation. But first, what I'd like to do is to just explain what the NRCS is, what it is that we do at the NRCS, and then I'll share with you some of the programs that are available for farmers and ranchers in the area, some of the most popular ones here, before taking you through some of the first steps. Oops, and I should probably progress the slide here so you can see my name. There we go. And then I'll take you through some of the steps for applying for the programs that I'm going to be talking about. So first up, what is the NRCS? As Annie mentioned, NRCS stands for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and we are a federal agency under the umbrella of the United States Department of Agriculture. And I'd like to share just a smidgen of history about the NRCS because I find it interesting. And I think it's important to kind of understand how the NRCS was formed, because, you know, even though our name has changed over time, some of those guiding principles have been steadfast throughout the agency's lifetime. So the NRCS was originally established by Congress in 1935 as a response to the Dust Bowl. And as you can see here, soil erosion was its biggest concern. And if you have not yet seen the Ken Burns documentary on the Dust Bowl, I highly recommend it. It does a wonderful job. If you're ever interested in this topic matter, to watch it. It's great. But anywho, so the Dust Bowl hit. People came out, they were encouraged to come out to the Midwest and farm, and they tilled up the land, they planted their crops, and then a drought hit. And because there was no, irrigation to speak of, the lands were fallow, the winds came, they took up that topsoil and blew it sheer across the nation into DC, as actually Congress was trying to figure out what to do about the situation. And there the NRCS was formed. And initially, the NRCS was called the Soil Conservation Service. Somewhere in the 90s, the name changed to the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and it's expanded to work with not just soil erosion, but other resource concerns like air quality, energy, water quality, water quantity. The amount of resource concerns is expanded. And we work with landowners through conservation planning and financial assistance that's designed to help folks conserve, maintain, and improve natural resources. And then the NRCS emphasizes voluntary science-based conservation. We offer technical assistance. We have partnerships with fellow agencies and tribal governments. We have incentive-based programs and cooperative problem solving at the community level. The NRCS contributes to conservation assistance through millions of dollars to conservation assistance through various financial programs and conservation planning efforts. All right, so I kind of touched on a little bit about what the NRCS does, but like, what does that look like on the ground? The NRCS motto, help people, help the land. That sums up what we do pretty succinctly, but what this means more broadly is that we provide resources to farmers, ranchers, and landowners to aid them with conservation. And let's see, I think I'm on almost the next slide. So we do this by identifying natural resource concerns, some of which I mentioned, like air quality, water quantity, and soil erosion. And we do that on farms and ranches and non-industrial private forests. And even sometimes more broadly on the watershed level. So not just the individual farm, but there, sometimes we take a broader look and look at the whole watershed in developing conservation plans. And we write these conservation plans to address the resource concerns that we have identified in the area, and then we provide cost share opportunities and technical assistance for installing conservation practices developed in these conservation plans. So the NRCS has not maybe offices in every county, but we service every county. For example, in Redmond, we have a Redmond field office, and that field office covers Jefferson County, Deschutes County, and Crook counties. We also employ a wide variety of professionals, and these include biologists, engineers, conservationists, soil scientists, geologists, economists, and like rangeland specialists. And at the Redmond field office, we are very lucky. We have representatives for each of those niche positions. Not every field office does, but every field office does have access to those folks. Okay, so now you know who the NRCS is, what it is that we do. Now I'm going to talk about some of the programs that we offer that are very popular in this area. First of which is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. So that's that first one on the top, and more often than not, we refer to it as EQIP because Environmental Quality Incentives Program is quite the mouthful. This has been our most popular financial assistance program. Through EQIP, we offer financial and technical assistance, and this is for structural and management conservation practices. So when I say structural practices, that would be like if you were looking to address a water quantity resource concern, that could mean installing a new sprinkler system that was more efficient. So that would be a structural practice. And then when I say a management practice, maybe we're also planning to do an irrigation water management plan, which is all about how you manage that water in that new system that you're going to be using. So both structural and management practices, we have cost share on. And then let's see, we use for that locally led general EQIP, here in Oregon, we use a strategic approach for those conservation strategies. And I'll get into a little bit more of that in the next slide. So in addition to general EQIP, we have a couple EQIP initiatives that I'd like to go over, and those include the Organic Initiative and then the High Tunnel System Initiative. And I'd also just wanted to touch briefly in just letting folks know that, in addition to financial assistance, we're also available to provide technical assistance on ag land. So that means even if you've applied for one of our programs and didn't get selected for funding, or even if you've never applied and you just called up NRCS looking for some help, we would be able to come out to your operation and help provide technical assistance for things like that irrigation water management that I was just talking about, or say you're wanting to plant some pollinator habitat, we'd be able to kind of walk through some things to consider. You know, if it was a dry land species mix, then, you know, maybe we could help identify what might be most appropriate to plant in your area. So it's not just financial assistance, also technical assistance to offer. And there are a lot of other programs, and I'm not going to be talking about tonight because that would be like it's like a few days of going over everything that we do. So there's a link that Annie's going to be posting that'll kind of give you a run through of everything that we do have available. But for tonight, I'm just going to concentrate on these 3 opportunities. Okay, general EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. So let's see. I briefly mentioned that the NRCS in Oregon's approach to doling out EQIP dollars is strategic. So what does that mean? This is in map form, in visual form, what our strategic approach looks like. So we focus our our conservation efforts very precisely. And it's kind of like a project area, and these project areas are developed by working with local communities, partners like the Forest Service, and landowners to determine what the county level resource concerns are. And then these are used to prioritize and focus EQIP investments in these areas. And these areas, these local areas, all these little like orange blobs and those like blue hashtags, we call these conservation implementation strategies, or CIS opportunities. Okay, I know I broke a cardinal rule here in PowerPoint presentations. I filled up your screen with a lot of words that are going to be hard to read, and I don't expect anybody to be reading through all of this. This is on purpose. It's to show just how many opportunities are available, and this is just from Hood River down to Klamath County. If you would like to know more about what's available in your area, Annie just posted, thank you, Annie, just posted a link to funding opportunities through these CISs in each of the counties. And it just goes into more detail about what each of those are and if they would be applicable to you. Let's see. So that's just very briefly what that general locally led EQIP program looks like. If you are interested in any of these programs, you would contact your local service center. Also something you can find on this website, on the NRCS website, or you can contact me and I can get you in touch with the right folks. Okay, so the next program I wanted to talk about, and the next couple, are actually 2 that I probably work mostly with the small farmers and ranchers and those folks that are transitioning to organic or are already certified organic. And the first of these programs, it's under EQIP funding, but it's the High Tunnel System Initiative. And so there are several goals of the High Tunnel Initiative, and I'm going to list them out right now. Most relevant, I think, to the Central Oregon and this area in general would be to extend the growing season, but it's also here to improve plant quality and soil quality, to reduce nutrient and pesticide transportation, to improve air quality through reducing transportation inputs, to reduce energy use by providing consumers with a local source of fresh produce. And thank you, Annie. There's a link here. So after I'm kind of done with my high tunnel bit, if I haven't mentioned or covered something that you have a question about, or I haven't answered it, or you want to just go check it out, there's a link on the NRCS Oregon webpage that'll tell you all about it. And so unlike that general EQIP funding, which was very, like, if you saw that map, very geographically bounded. It had very specific areas that funding was available in for each county and sometimes across counties. With the High Tunnel System Initiative, and as well as the Organic Initiative, which I'm about to talk about, this is a statewide program. So it doesn't matter where you are in the state, you can apply for these. So not geographically bounded like the CIS approach. Okay, so what is the High Tunnel System Initiative? You know, what does it do? I think that here's a list of some of the most frequently asked questions about the High Tunnel System Initiative. I think some of the biggest takeaways are that, you know, a lot of folks ask, like, is it heat? Like, do you cost share on heating? I'm like, no, we don't cost share on the heating, but you're more than welcome to heat it yourself. Just NRCS won't pay on that infrastructure. Another big one is that the high tunnel must be installed in the same footprint of land that a crop was grown in the previous cropping cycle. So we want to make sure as NRCS, you know, we're funded through taxpayer dollars. We want to make sure we're spending your taxpayer money appropriately and transparently. And so we need to make sure that we're addressing and establish like a resource concern. So we need to show that a resource concerns exist by having a crop that, you know, could have benefited from a high tunnel, and then addressing that resource concern by putting a high tunnel there and being able to extend that growing season and address that plant degradation and productivity. Another big takeaway, people ask, can you put raised beds or put containers or plant in pots? Now you can't plant on tables, it can't be in a container, but you can do raised beds up to 12 inches, so long as that there's still that soil contact with the soil, the original soil that was under the high tunnel system. And this is a laundry list of kind of some of the common things. All of this information is on that high tunnel webpage that Annie provided in the chat box. Okay, so success story. This is Central Oregon Veterans Ranch. Orion here, he's the guy on the left. He is the farm manager over at Central Oregon Veterans Ranch. And these guys were actually my first ever conservation plan here in Central Oregon. They're great. Just an example of a high tunnel. So pretty typical, like on the left side, Orion was transplanting, I think it was tomatoes that he had started in his greenhouse and was planting them directly into the field. And as you can see, he's got that mulch there. It looks like he had some caterpillar tunnels, like trying to keep that ground and those plants as warm as possible, because, you know, in Central Oregon, we've got that short growing season. I mean, we've got frost. It could happen anytime, like in the middle of summer. But, you know, still like not being able to yield as much as he could if after the high tunnel was installed. On the right-hand side, you can see he was able to plant way more, like much more diversity in his crop selection. Yields were higher because he was able to take advantage of that longer growing season. And also being able to take advantage of that vertical space. You can see the trellises up there. And it's hard for me to see right now. I'm not sure what he's got going on. Maybe some cucumbers or some sort of, I don't think it's tomatoes, but yeah, so taking advantage of that vertical space as well. So just an example of a local success story on, you know, Orion had a resource concern. He came to the NRCS and asked for assistance and applied for the High Tunnel System Initiative. He, you know, went through the whole process and was awarded a contract with the NRCS. And then here's the high tunnel and the results of that project. So that wrapped up a little bit about the high tunnel and now a high tunnel system initiative. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about the organic initiative. So much like the high tunnel system initiative, this program, so like I mentioned, it's not geographically bounded and it's opened It's open, so it's not just certified organic producers. It's also available for those who might be transitioning to organic, that kind of in between time. You picked up land and you're, it's a process to kind of get you to that point of being able to be certified by, say, Oregon TILF to be USDA organic. It also covers those folks who are exempt from organic certification. And what that means to NRCS, the NRCS definition of exempt, is those folks that are practicing organically, but they don't have they're not certified organic, they're not they're not trying to transition organic, but they're already practicing organically, but they're selling less than $5,000 of their produce or what their operation is producing for the year annually. So if you're doing all the things organically, but you're only selling $5,000 less, then you would also qualify for the organic initiative. Okay, so what is the organic initiative? What does it do? What can we do under that? We could do everything. Under the organic initiative, there's like every conservation practice under the EQIP umbrella is pretty much open for a producer to access. It's not like the high tunnel initiative. We basically have we can install a high tunnel, and then there's also some complementary practices that go along with that, like mulching or maybe some pollinator habitat. It's a pretty short list of practices that would complement the installation of a high tunnel. But with the organic initiative, we're able to do full-blown conservation plans. We can establish buffer zones. We could plan and install pollinator habitat, hedgerows. We can improve the soil quality and organic matter while also helping to minimize erosion through tons of soil health practices. We can develop a grazing plan if you've got livestock and implement some supporting livestock practices. We can help develop, I think I already said grazing plan, but we can also do, I think I mentioned briefly before about irrigation. So we can help improve irrigation efficiency. You're in flood, you want to move to sprinkler. That's something the organic initiative can cover. And then it could also, through, I mentioned nutrient management. We can do a nutrient management plan, intensive, worth it, but intensive. I always like to mention that. We can also help you to enhance crop rotations or implement cover cropping into your operation. So really just a huge, a wide variety of practices that we can use in this initiative, and really highly dependent on where you are, your kind of operation, your current resource concerns, and where do you want to see your operation go? Like, we can work with you to develop a plan that would help you, if you're transitioning, like help you meet those requirements that you need to, those hoops you need to jump through to make sure that you qualify for being certified organic, or if you're already certified, just maintaining that certification. So a lot of opportunities there. Okay. So that was a little bit about the organic initiative. And now, so you know who the NRCS is, kind of what we do, or a little bit about what I do, some of our programs, and now you want to apply for one of them. Okay. What's next? Next, we need to make sure that you and your land are eligible. What does eligibility mean? So if you can answer yes to all these questions, you are good to go for NRCS programs. And I'm just going to briefly just kind of go through all of these. So producer eligibility. Do you have a social security number? Or if you're an entity, an EIN, that employer identification number? Can you prove that you have control over the land for the entire length of the contract? And that's usually about 3 to 5 years. 3 for high tunnels, 5 years for organic applications or contracts. Is your adjusted gross income, or AGI, less than $900,000? And are you legally allowed to make management decisions on land? If you can answer yes, then you are eligible, producer eligibility. Now, what about your land? Is your land an ag, or is it non-industrial private forest? Yes, then you're good to go. If you have to be in compliance with HEL and wetland provisions. If someone wants to ask me a question about that later, I'd be happy to answer. That's like another 3-day webinar about what HEL lands are. Please call me. I would love to chat with you about it, or send you to Jenny Moffitt, who is our soil scientist, who is an expert on HEL and wetlands. But if you can answer yes, then you're good. And then if you have a water right, or you're irrigating, can you prove that you are legally allowed to apply that water on your lands? Just a verification form. And you have to have an interest in the agricultural operation. And then also, if you are irrigating, we need to make sure that you've been irrigating 2 out of the last 5 years. So if you're able to answer yes to all of those, then you're pretty much, you're eligible for NRCS programs. Okay, so you found out that you're eligible. Now what? So you're interested into a program, you found out you're eligible, or maybe you haven't found out you're eligible. Regardless, contact one of us. Contact me. I'm your small farm and organic specialist. And if you're, maybe you don't qualify, maybe you're not in that that subset of the population, you're not a small farm or organic, and you're more interested in that that CIS that you saw, contact your local service center. Either way, we'll get you to the right person. And so what I like to do, every planner is a little bit different, but the first thing that I'm probably going to chat with you about is to just visit with you. I want a site visit. I want to get boots on the ground. I want to talk to you. I want to see your operation. I want to see what your resource concerns are. And I want to hear all about what it is that you want to do and where you want to take your operation. And then if you're not sick of me and you still want to apply, then I will help you with the application process. Now, the actual application itself is 4 pages, which sounds like a lot, but it's not. I don't even think it's a dozen questions, and most of them are yes or no. There's little check boxes. It's really easy. It only takes a couple minutes. And after you're done applying, you give that application to me. I type it in, and I put it into our system, and then you wait. And we probably chat a little bit about some details, maybe something I didn't get in the field, have some questions for you. I'll probably send some paperwork your way. Be warned, if you do work with the NRCS, there's quite a bit of paperwork. And then you'll wait, and then you'll wait, and then you'll probably wait some more. And all this time while you're waiting, I'm going to be working. I'm going to be doing a draft of the conservation plan. I'm going to be identifying and working with you to figure out what are those conservation practices that you want to put in place. And then what I do is, once I get all the applications, I assess and rank them. So every application we receive, they're all assessed and ranked the same across the board. And they're assigned a point, a certain score. And in the case of the organic and high tunnel initiatives, these are all the applications for the entire state. So I just work on mine. And then once every other person like me in the state has assessed and ranked their applications, we have a whole list that's compiled. And since we only have a finite amount of money to work with, we start just going down that list. And we fund every application that we can with the money that we have until we run out of money. And so that's what's happening while you're waiting. And then once we figure out who's gotten funded or who's been pre-approved for funding, we let you know. And then you'll probably get an official letter from the state, but I'll usually be the one calling you up and letting you know if you've been pre-approved or not pre-approved for funding. And then if you have been pre-approved for funding, well, actually, let's back it up. If you have not been pre-approved for funding, there's always another opportunity. We're constantly going through this funding cycle. So it's not the end all be all of, oh, I didn't get it this time. That's fine. We can just defer you to the next funding cycle. And maybe that's when you get funded. or, you know, maybe we work on your plan and you start doing things that'll help you prepare for that next funding cycle. But if you are lucky duck and you got pre-approved, then I keep working on developing that conservation plan and also now a contract. And then it's kind of like a 9.5. But once that contract is developed, you sign on the dotted line, I sign on the dotted line, my boss signs on the dotted line, everybody signs it. And then we're, you know, there's a lot of other little details that go on during that, but I won't get into details here. But after all that's done and all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, then we can start putting that conservation on the ground and doing those conservation plans or practices that were outlined in that plan that we developed. There's a little note on the sidebar here that I get this question a lot, and I think it's important because when working with agricultural producers, this is a business. You need to know like the economics of the business. And part of that is figuring out like these are cost share opportunities or incentives that we have. So how does that work? You know, there's money there's some sort of transaction that happens. So I'm just going to read it verbatim here. So for NRCS, I can't really read it because everybody's beautiful faces are blocking it. But for NRCS financial assistance, all planned conservation practices are paid for by the producer upfront and out of pocket. Once each practice is complete and installed according to NRCS specifications and standards, the producer gets the cost share amount direct deposited in their bank account. So that pretty much sums it up. Just important to note that that cost for putting these conservation practices are on the producer to be paid for upfront. And then we come in and, okay, take a high tunnel, for example. For that for Orion and the high tunnel contract that he got, we developed a conservation plan. It outlined all of the specifications on how this high tunnel was supposed to be installed. He got it installed and he called me up. He's like, Stephanie, I've got the high tunnel up. I was like, cool, I'm coming out. And so I went out and I took some measurements. I, you know, measured the width and the length and made sure all of those other things that were listed on that slide were up to specs and standards. I signed off on it, certified, and then in a couple weeks he got that that cost share amount that was in for that high tunnel into his bank account. So, and then one thing I didn't write here, but I also like to mention that if you are working with the NRCS and you are receiving cost share payments, all of those payments are treated as taxable income. I am not a tax person. I can't give you any advice, but I do want to mention that part. Okay, next slide. Okay, that was it. Next application deadline, November 20th. If you are interested in any of the programs that I talked about, that EQIP with the CIS, the organic initiative, that high tunnel system, all of those programs have an application deadline for November 20th. Now there's going to be another one after this. I have no idea what that date is. I only know a little bit before everybody else does. But as soon as I do make sure to let everybody know. But right now, that current deadline is November 20th. If you are interested in applying for any of these programs, contact me, call me, email me, whatever you'd like. I would be happy to chat with you about it, answer any questions. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you, Annie, so much for providing all those links while in the chat box while I was talking. So I'm here to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
So we have 2 questions. If you guys do have questions, please put them in the chat box or just unmute yourselves. And I'll pass it to Lori for questions.
Thanks, Stephanie. This was a awesome overview of the work that you do, and it explains why you're so busy. One of the questions I have is about funding cycles. You mentioned that if you don't make one, you could always make another. Roughly, you know, how often do those show up, or how many do you have in a year typically?
Great question. It's an interesting time right now. So I've spoken with other planners. I've been in the agency for a few years now. This is the soonest I've ever seen us having a deadline. Typically our first funding cycle, like that application deadline, happens in the spring, like the beginning of the year. For whatever reason, it's earlier this year. And something also to mention too, so we run on a fiscal cycle that's different from a calendar year. So our first of the year begins in the beginning of October and then runs to the end of September. So we're in like fiscal year 21. And so this is our first sign up for that fiscal year. There may be another sign up after this, before the end of September. I've heard rumors. I couldn't officially say if that was going to be the case, but typically it's been about one application and one cycle a year, maybe two this year. So just something to think about. I know, and it's hard to, I also wanted to mention, thanks for kind of jogging my memory on this, but the length of time that it takes for the whole application and planning and contracting process can take a few months, 3 or 4 months. So when you're thinking, those are conversations that I have with the producers is, some folks want to make sure, they want to get that high tunnel installed right now. Like they applied, are they going to get it? Can they just put it up now and we can reimburse them? And unfortunately, that's not how the NRCS works. We have to make sure that we're compliant with NEPA and SHPO, that we're not digging up any, Indian burial grounds or things of cultural or historical significance. So there's a little bit of a process that happens. So that's why I always encourage, if you're not sure you want to do it this year, you don't want to put up a high tunnel or put that hedgerow in this year, maybe a couple years from now, I would apply, because we kind of take a long time to get things done. We'll take a long time and then we'll say, okay, now we need to do everything right now. So in pretty typical government fashion. So I hope that answered your question a little bit.
That's a good one. Thanks. Do you think there'll be fewer applications and less competition because of the early application period, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. And then if somebody wanted, I'm just growing questions.
Yeah, go for it. I love it.
If somebody wanted, they decided like, oh my gosh, I really need a high tunnel, and the deadline is the 20th. What's the last, like, could they call you on the 18th and still get an application done?
Oh,
What's the latest they could do it?
They can go up until November 20th at 4 p.m. or 4:30 p.m.
Cool. And that's
So
that 4-page application you talked about?
Yeah. And it really just takes a couple minutes. And so part of that application, and something I didn't mention, which now you're jogging my memory, is being able to get established with the Farm Services Agency. They're kind of the clearinghouse for the eligibility. We need to make sure that you're in the system as an ag producer with FSA, because that's how we kind of pull your information and plug it into our software for that application, for when I type it all in. Now, even if you haven't yet gotten yourself established with FSA, I can kind of backdate it, but I need to make sure that physical application is in my hands no later than the 20th at the end of the day. So we can always we can make sure that we work with FSA. And that can be a little bit difficult too right now. They're understaffed and they've got a lot of stuff going on and they're busy with their own programs. So, but that might take a little bit of time, but so long as I have that physical application then on that deadline, then we should be good to go.
Thank you. Can I ask one more question?
Yes, please.
This is about the cost share. And what a wonderful part of the EQIP programs. Our season extender program at HDFFA is really popular for high tunnels. And we provide a 50-50 cash match. So we pay half and a producer pays the other half. What kinds of cost shares are available from the NRCS for high tunnels and other programs?
You asked such great questions, Lori. Thank you. If I have to give this presentation again, I'm just going to go through all your questions and make sure that they're embedded into my presentation. Yeah. So it's interesting. So we aim to have our cost share. We say at 50%. Our cost share is a fixed amount. So specifically for high tunnels, it's square footage based. We pay a certain amount per square foot. And it's supposed to be about 50%, but that 50% is based on averages across California, Washington, and Oregon. And it's fixed, so, and we don't ask for receipts or anything. So however many square feet your high tunnel is, it's going to be that same payment on that square foot. Doesn't matter what vendor you decided to go with, if they offered you a deal, that's not anything that we take into account. And so I think I might have had it here. So we don't have a size limit for the high tunnel, but we do have payment caps. And this is based on that square footage. I think it ends up being the most we'll pay on is 2,155 square feet. And that equates to $6,500 as a payment limit for a high tunnel, and $7,725 if you are considered a historically underserved community. And I can touch on that real quick. If you are socially disadvantaged, a veteran farmer rancher, beginner farmer rancher, and I'm forgetting one, I know there's another one, but in the application, there's a list of, check boxes to see if you would be considered historically underserved. And if that's the case, then you get that higher payment rate. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more? I'm happy to sit here all night and answer questions about.
I have a question, Stephanie.
Yes.
Is there a acreage amount for producers of the land they own that you work with?
No.
No.
So long as they can qualify as as long as they are able to set themselves up with FSA as being an ag producer, then they meet that, that's part of the eligibility. As long as they can answer all of those eligibility questions, then they qualify. So we don't base anything on acreage. We don't discriminate against how big or small a farm is.
Okay.
Yeah. Great question.
Yeah. My other questions you just answered, so.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
Yeah.
Any more? I think I had some questions. I was like, let's see. I think I answered. Can you? Oh, another question that I get sometimes is, can you have more than one high tunnel in an application? You can't. You can have one high tunnel per application, but say I've had folks do this. Like they had a contract with us. They got a high tunnel, and then the next year they applied for another one. You can continue to apply for them. But that payment cap that I was telling you about, that $6,500, that's like a limit per application. And in the organic initiative, you can apply for, that's something important to note. In the organic initiative, you can also apply for a high tunnel. It's one of the conservation practices that you can put in that plan. But you can apply for a high tunnel and under the initiative, and then you can apply for organic and have a high tunnel under that application, but we'd only be able to fund one of those. Cool. Anything else? I think we're good. Annie.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. We really appreciate you presenting tonight on NRCS programs. I know we have a lot of small farmers and ranchers in our area that can definitely benefit from this. So we'll be sending this recording out to our partners, and we'll also put it on our website. So anyone that wants to see it, we'll also send out an email to all of our registrants with the PowerPoint and these links, so you guys can refer back to them. And I'll also send out an email with your contact information, Stephanie. So with that said,
thank you.
Yeah, with that said, thanks so much for everyone for coming in tonight. I know it's a little late, but we really appreciate your participation.
Oh yeah, did I go over time? I think I just made it.
2 minutes.
Oh my God.
All good.
Okay.
And I hope everyone has a great night. Thanks so much.
Thank
you,
you,
guys.
Annie. Thank you, everybody, for showing
Great
up.
Have a good
topic,
Appreciate it.
night.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.